Hello, welcome to True Hoop with me, Jarod, Hector, and Coach David Thorpe. How are you, sir?
Jarod, I'm feeling a little frisky today.
Yeah?
I don't know if we're going to get into the 70s, believe it or not. Yeah. I swam last night in my house. I did my laps. It was 78 degrees, which is, what do you normally swim in a pool? Like in a competitive pool, what's it?
Well, listen, we don't like it at that temperature. You'd like it at 68, 70, somewhere in that range. Yeah, you don't want it hot,
To me, hot is, our pool is only 84, 85.
No. You want, most pools are in the 70s somewhere. That's where you want it. Like,
really?
Yeah. These guys they got a race, man.
It wasn't bad. Once you're in at 78, it takes like 2 seconds and it's fine. But yeah, I think it was this morning. The pool was at 75, and I don't think the weather is going to be even that warm all day. So it'll be chilly this afternoon when I swim. Well,
yeah. Look, 70. I think the official range they want is 77 to 82. For competition. I find most people like it in that 77, even if 76 range. If you're creeping up to over 80, it's
it's hot. Yeah, it's hot.
It's just not great. Not great.
But I'm not breaking any Olympic records.
You're just exercising.
I'm up to 21 minutes now. Yeah.
Right.
So I don't. If I get to 30, fine. I don't know if I have the time. Every 9 minutes counts, but I'm working on it.
I'm gonna put you and Pelton on the same competitive swim plan. I sent Kevin some workouts, so I'm gonna put you on the Pelton plan.
Send me whatever you want. Right now I just hammer out the laps. I don't do anything. No interval stuff. I swim at a pretty good pace. I'm 58, so almost 59.
Pelton. When I gave it to him, he liked it because he's like, "Oh, this is fun." So when he goes with his buddies and they go swimming, he's like, "All right, we're doing the Jarod today."
So what would that mean exactly?
It's just I just have him do a lot of interval training, and it's fun. More like we talk about for basketball, right? More race pace or pace stuff as opposed to just back and forth and back and forth. No, he likes it. It's good. And it's just a way it shocks the system a little bit, right? It gives you something different.
Whatever helps me not be the world's fattest man, that's a goal. That's what I want. That's what I'm trying to live for, Jarod.
David, you are not close to being the world's fattest man. I've seen you.
Hence the swimming and the walking. That's the idea, Jarod.
Basketball, we've got a lot more preseason games happening, so things are exciting. We're seeing teams play, and fans are getting super excited about their young guys. I always laugh when I watch preseason basketball because when I watch any basketball now, David Thorpe is always in my brain, even though he's not there, saying, "Calm down, this shit don't matter. This doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. This doesn't matter." So I'm always like, guys, it's preseason. You can take away some things, but But let's not decide this is going to be the greatest team or player ever. No. It's just
it would be. They're good right now. They're good trailers. How many times have you seen a trailer thinking, "Ooh, boy,
yeah, I want to see that
the movie." Just fucking
sometimes it's not great.
I remember my wife and I saw the trailer for Ray.
Okay, yeah.
And I said to her, "Oh, he's winning the Academy Award."
And he sure did.
But that's the last good trailer I remember. So that's what preseason is. It's I'm really excited about Jamal Cain from Miami.
Mm-hmm.
I'm writing a piece this week on just the things that have excited me or kind of worried me.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just trailers.
Yeah.
We just have to remember that. The season is tough and there's lots of pivoting that goes on. And the grind gets most people.
A lot of things happen. And there was an interesting article, David, in The Athletic by Jarod Weiss, who covers the Boston Celtics. And it was about Sam Cassell being brought into the Celtics coaching staff. Sam used to work for Doc when Doc was coaching the 76ers.
He's been around.
And everyone knows Sam I am from his days in Houston winning championships, from his days in Milwaukee. Cassell, one of the great.
Or in the case of the old timers, junior college. And then Florida State. With Doug Edwards. And Bob Sura. The best Florida State team since Dave Collins. That's the Sam Cassell that I love.
That was a great player. And Sam, one of the great shot makers, great point guard, could score from the post, operate from the mid post, a strong point guard, right? Played a lot of bully ball.
For a guy that is, he's slight.
Yes.
I've been with Sam. I was with Sam last November, a row away from him. He's a slight guy, but I believe he's a Baltimore kid. And he played
contact
like a bully.
Yeah, he loves contact.
For sure.
Some guys, David, do you when you coach players, and we didn't talk about that on the show, but I'm wondering, if there's a player who doesn't love contact, what do you do with that kind of player? You're like, buddy, this ain't the sport for you.
Yeah. So first of all, there's two ways I have like two buckets for players. There are players that really can dish out punishment, and there are players that can really absorb it without it changing their game. So Allen Iverson and then my own kid, Kevin Martin, were two guys that were not going to bully you. They were skinny. Kevin was super skinny. But you could beat them up all you want. It didn't change their game one bit. I think in one college game, I think Kevin took 26 free throws. Like they just kept fouling him. He didn't care. Nothing's changing. Some crazy number like that. The bullies are the bullies. If you can't be one of those two, well, you're already very much limiting what you can accomplish, right? You're not going to get to the paint much, and if you don't deal with screens, great. But the truth is, most adults can handle punishment just fine. You know, if they've lasted that long, they get to college, they may not like being hit, but it shouldn't really affect their game. Yeah,
it was good to point out.
Yeah.
Anyway, going back to Sam. So Sam now on the Boston Celtics staff, and in Jarod Weiss's piece, he talked about Sam being a good player coach for Jayson Tatum. And those of you that know in the NBA, on every staff, there's guys that work out players specifically when they come on the court to do their work. There are guys they watch film with that almost always is never the head coach, just because he has a million other things to worry about. So guys will have their personal guys that are like, all right, we're watching this film about this thing, we're working out on this move, whatever. And Sam was thought of as someone who'd be great for Jayson, mainly because Tatum's such a big guy, 6'10", and he's someone who can for sure dish punishment because he's big, and he can take it as well because he's also big, right? He can operate in the mid post and work on his playmaking game because in crunch time, the ball is in Tatum's hands a lot, right? As the Celtics' best player. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. And then I thought, David, you know, when you and I do our exercises and we're thinking about, all right, who are the future American players under 26 that can be MVPs or, you know, best player in the world? And you and I we mention Tatum, but when you look at like larger lists, I'm like, Tatum's name either somehow gets forgotten a lot, doesn't get brought up a lot. And I wonder how much of it is because he came into the league so young. And so we already think he's so old at this point. And he's not that old. He's only 26.
So we're going to talk about the media more later too. I don't tend to identify much with what the average fan or media person says. So I don't even know what they think, but he's a perennial All-NBA player.
For sure.
He's the best player on one of the best teams in the league. I do think in terms of the MVP voting, Jaylen Brown is also an All-NBA player.
Correct.
And that is challenging. Giannis had no one competing for that. Jokic had no teammate competing for that. There's been discussion about AD and LeBron 3 years ago taking a little bit of votes away from each other. And so that is the case with Boston. But you're right to say he's one of Team USA's most talented players when he's played. And he was young when he did it. And absolutely, Boston can be the best team in the league this year. It's possible. I mean, you wouldn't argue likely, but you would say they're a favorite to be the best team in the league regular season.
Yeah.
And he's their best player for sure, in my opinion. I also think, too, a little bit, he hasn't had that postseason pop. He's just been really good a bunch. Not that he's not had great series, he has. But he was bad in the last couple of series that they lost. And he can't blame the Olympics on last year. That was 2 years ago. So, nevertheless, he's absolutely an MVP candidate.
He's an elite player.
He's an incredible player.
And what I like,
two-way player.
I was just going to say, what I like about him is that he's very good on the defensive end. Again, when you're that big, I mean, he's got to be 6'10" by now. I don't know what they list him at, but he's huge. You know, when you have that size is so important, right? Because it can and we'll talk about Victor later in size. Now that can just negate so many problems for other people, for your opponent, or cause so many problems for your opponent, I should say. Tatum's incredible. I like the idea of, you know, when you're looking to pair players with certain coaches, you know, when you're someone as accomplished as Tatum, who's someone's a good fit. And you mentioned Sam being a Baltimore kid, and like, so I know he's also a guy, Sam is, who's a straight talker, right? He's not going to be like, oh, Nancying around, talking. No, let's get directly to the point. Jayson, I need you to do this because you're 2 inches taller than that guy and 60 pounds stronger. Just put him under the basket, do this thing. Here's how you play making the post. I like the idea of players coaches who were players being able to communicate that with a player like Tatum, right? Because I feel like when you're accomplished, sometimes it's hard, and not just in basketball, any sport, right? It's hard to take advice from someone but I've been doing this thing and I've been pretty successful doing this thing I've been doing.
All right. Well, now you're getting into my world.
I know.
Okay. And I played at a very good high school. I was not a very good player. I was better than what my coach realized. He's a jackass. But I certainly wasn't Sam Cassell. If you are working with the world's best players, you got to be right. Most of the time, you got to be right. Because sometimes you're allowed to not be wrong, but just there's multiple ways to do something and try this. There's a player I'm talking to right now that I don't think he's taking advantage of his size at the rim as much as he could. He can do everything. And so I told him I watched your last 100 baskets last year, and you only did an early seal one time, meaning race the court, run to the rim, even though you're not the team center, and put someone on your back. It's an easy way to get a bucket or two a game.
And a foul.
Or a foul or both, right. So he said, okay. And I'm happy to say that in the last 2 preseason games since I've told him, I texted him clips of everything. Again, he's done it before. I didn't teach him anything. I'm trying to make him more mindful to do it more frequently. And he's done it 3 times now. The first time he did it, he posted so hard, the little dude guarding him fell down, and then his dumbass teammate didn't throw him the ball. The very next possession, he did it again, same defender. The defender didn't fall down. A different guy threw it to him in the right in front of the rim, and he just turned and scored. I was telling this to Henry, the way a dad might score on his 5-year-old son on a 5-foot basket. Like the little guard had no chance against him, and then he did it again in the next game. So he's done it now 3 times in probably 45 offensive possessions, whereas he did it one in the last that was just shots. So he probably had that was probably representing 15, 20 games, not 15, probably 10 games. He didn't do it, but one time. So, and I didn't play great, but I'm right.
You told him right.
And it worked. And he first said, okay, coach, I'm going to think about it. And it's working. And so to me, I think where Sam can really be helpful, Jarod, is thinking about how a defender might be thinking. Jayson, you've always done this, but I think if you just take one more dribble or turn your head a little bit left, it's the little things, Jarod. I can't stress that enough. It's the little things. It's the angle of your head, where your eyes are looking, how hard you might dribble a ball. Did I ever tell you the story once of a 6'9", 6'10" player of mine called me one day. He was in the bubble, and in practice, he was struggling to score against Shabazz Napier. He was a little guy. Yeah. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I kept trying to back him down. And he's just so quick and crafty. And he really threw me off my rhythm. And I said, I'm just a terrible coach. What the fuck are you doing?
Right.
The only chance he's got against you is when you put the ball down and back him down. Yeah. Just square up, fight to get open before you get it. And then just turn around and shoot over him. The very next day, he's like, okay. The next day, they played Oklahoma City. Chris Paul was on that team that year.
Well, don't put the ball down on that guy.
Right. So he got it from like 12 feet, and you could see his brain processing for just a moment. Then he realized, oh, wait a second. I just talked to his coach about this yesterday. Inside reverse pivot, bucket, super easy. Like Chris Paul wasn't even there.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you just have to give, and I think Sam can do that a lot with Jayson. And then the other thing, and I think this is really interesting, is Sam becomes a sounding board for Jayson in a way that maybe I couldn't be, although I'm old enough now where there's almost nothing you probably can ask me that I haven't heard from another coach or player or I dealt with myself. But Jayson has that now with someone on his bench where like, hey, they're trying this on me. What do you think? Because remember, Sam just wasn't a player. He's been coaching for a long time.
Correct.
And so as I've said before on the show, boy, what an amazing thing it would be to be an offensive lineman playing with Tom Brady. I was just talking to an agent on this yesterday, Jarod, an agent representing one of the best freshman quarterbacks in the country. The agent's someone I've mentored a lot for basketball, but he has football players too. In fact, now he's got another likely top 5 pick one day. That guy's still in high school. And so we were talking about this very thing that He's getting his brains beaten as a freshman, but boy, is he learning.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
what hasn't Tom Brady seen?
Seen it all.
And so now there's offensive linemen. Tom Brady doesn't want to get smashed, so he's teaching those guys everything.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, figuring that stuff out is everything. So I think Jayson has someone he can trust now that can figure stuff out with and run an idea by that maybe he didn't have before. Maybe he did. It's interesting too. The article mentions it. I'm not sure I really understood it. All these coaches, I know we're going to get into Mazzulla in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
All these coaches, they have different rules as to whom on their staff coaches whom.
Mm-hmm.
Who on the staff coaches whom. Last year, there was a coach that got suspended, assistant coach, ostensibly for coaching guys that weren't his guys. That's as it was explained to me that way. It's weird. It's possessive. It's territorial. There was a player I was helping that really wanted to work with a coach from his staff, but he didn't know how to do it because that coach wasn't someone that he normally would work with. I had to get the agent involved. I didn't do it. The agent got involved and made it work.
Yeah.
It's all weird. So I hope with the Celtics that isn't the case.
Yeah.
I hope that it's much more open and that we're all coaching all of you and not so specific. That doesn't mean you don't have a specific guy. I have a player who's got a shooting coach and a ball handling coach in his team. So 2 different people. I go to this person to work on my handle. I go to this person to get my shots up and work me out. And that isn't so common, but I think it's going to get more common. We'll start getting some specialities to what we're doing. All of this is new compared to years ago where it used to be kind of X and O only. So I think it's good progress.
No, I think so too. And I loved your point about attention to detail and the little things. Because when you're talking about, because again, Jayson Tatum is a perennial All-NBA candidate, All-NBA first-team candidate, which means he's always between the top 5, top 10 players in the league.
Right.
When you're trying to be the best player, it's little things at this level that make you better, right? To your point, the angle of your head when you're attacking, like how hard you dribble your first dribble, right? Your pivot, like all these little tiny things that you're like, again, the average fan probably doesn't notice or see. And you're like, this is what's going to make you better. Like running early, using your size to seal your man. This is what makes you better and gets you easy points.
Last night, a player took a 3 and it was flat. He doesn't take many threes. He's a very good shooter. His team doesn't use him that way too much. And I texted him after the game that I thought his shot was flat. At 8 o'clock this morning, this is no exaggeration, he texted me saying, Coach, I have my players, every shot you missed the night before, you should get like 5 or 10 reps making them the next day. Just so you never feel like this isn't a shot I can make a lot. So he said he did that. And then he also made 100 threes. And it was 8 o'clock in the morning. And he's not on East Coast time. Yes, he is. My bad. Yes, he is. So he is on East Coast time. Still, like these guys are workers, man. They fucking
got to.
They're like missing shots. And it's all. A couple of nights ago, a player got blocked at the rim. I thought he caught the ball in a good spot, and I thought he was casual about the finish. And the defender, who he had never played before, blocked his shot, and he ended up scoring fine. But when he got it back, I texted him this morning, you need to be greedy. Like, don't ever just assume you're going to make that shot and get casual. And so sometimes it's more motivational or more knowledge-based, and sometimes very technical. A driving player is most vulnerable typically on the gather. So how are you gathering it? Where are you gathering it? Are you, I call it LeBroning it, where you grip it with 2 arms, like a fullback, going up the middle. Are you harding it, where you get it to this, like your chest and give him your elbow and right by his jaw? Like are you extending it way out away from your guy? I don't care what you do. Typically, sometimes I do. Mostly I don't. I just want you mindful of how valuable that gather is, because that's when you're most vulnerable. And so sometimes the advice you give is technical. And what I would tell you is these players don't care most of them, the huge majority, they don't care how you know what you know. Can you make me better? Can I have more success with the advice you're giving me? Because if they will, it's like rats to cheese, man. They'll just keep going to it, as they should.
Yes, correct.
Who wouldn't? I mean, if I just, anyone that can help me,
right?
Man, I want to be with them all the time.
100%. And this is, this stuff is great. You guys are getting from David. Because again, David talks to actual right now. Like, right, as you just mentioned, a player this morning, you had a game last night. This is what didn't go well. And we're lucky here at True because, David has us on a couple chats that he's in with coaches and various players, and he'll put in clips of saying, all right, when you do this play, this is what you should be working on. And it's amazing, the level of detail. And it's, again, if I just watch the play normally without David's captions, I just see basketball. With David's captions, I'm like, oh, this is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing, the level of detail. So in that article, David, Joe Mazzulla has a bunch of, different coaches around. Jeff Van Gundy is going to be a senior consultant.
Yeah.
Just a variety of people. And one of the things that I did as a coach, I know you stress, is the importance of a coach having humility. And knowing what I don't know and having the best people around me who can help me with what I don't know and get better at that thing. Now, in the NBA, that isn't always a very easy thing because, one, it's super competitive. There's only 30 head coaching jobs that exist, and then one of each assistant on every team.
Right.
So everybody's always worried about who's trying to take my job, and it becomes this possessive thing, as Dave was talking about with players before. Oh, don't talk to Coach Thorpe. I'm your workout guy. And it's just like, what are we doing? Like, and it then creates a system. And I would imagine any team where that is the type of attitude, I bet those teams don't win very often.
They don't win as much as they should.
Correct.
I would think, that's just an obstacle.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to a player this morning, very talented young player on an NBA team, and I said, what is it your coaches are talking about the most? Your head coach, your assistant coaches, in terms of identity? And he said, chemistry and trust. I did not expect that. And by the way, I think it's kind of bullshit. But that's what the coaches are saying. I don't think the players lying to me.
Right.
I think chemistry and trust are everything. And so when you don't have that in your staff, you're just going to reach your ceiling. Your ceiling's going to be much lower, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the point on humility is really important. To be successful in this business, working with the world's best players, you need to have a confidence bordering on arrogance. I definitely have that for sure. People who don't know me think I am very arrogant because I sound very confident all the time. They have no idea what they're talking about. As I tell every player I deal with, especially as they get older, this is not a lecture class. This is a discussion class. Man, I'm learning from you. I'm listening when you're talking. I'm listening. They're the ones playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
That I can always find, if I can explain something in 2 words instead of 3, I'm doing that. I want to say as few words as possible and have it carry the most meaning. And some players sometimes can just crystal clear clarity explain something. I'm like, oh boy. Like I told you, the best thing ever is when, I've been teaching ball handling for a long time, but in the not 90s, in 2000 and maybe 2002, Jason Williams, White Chocolate, was in my gym.
Mm-hmm.
And when I said to him, how do you do that? Like, how do you dribble like that? Coach, I'm just hammering nails.
Yeah.
Fireworks, hammering nails. Like,
Done.
I've never said anything else. Like, there's no better way to say it. Hammer the nail into the ground. The faster it gets back in your hand, the more control you have. The millisecond it leaves your finger pads, it's a loose ball, so it's back in your finger pads, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the best coaches, this is where I think Pop has been really good, and Bud and Spo, is I think it's collaborative more than you think.
Mm-hmm.
Very collaborative. I went to go watch a college workout. I don't know if I told you this. I told you I was at Waco. I went to Baylor's practice. As a young man, I help on Baylor's team. And so I went to practice, and I was kind of miffed. The coaches invited me. I was supposed to watch film with them. And I'm on the practice court watching a good young player just shoot the ball with someone I didn't know before. And finally the coaches came down and greeted me, whatever, and they apologized and said, we were just in a knockdown, drag-out debate over something on defense. And I thought that's why this team, is very good. Yeah, they know what they're doing. Baylor knows what they're doing. They actually have an assistant coach on their staff who assisted me in high school.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's a legendary kind of guy, and not in my area, but in NBA. And now he's in college. But he was one of Dirk's first coaches, a guy named Bill Peterson. And Bill was one of my volunteer assistants when I was 15 years old. So yeah, I've been with some good coaches before. Mazzulla has the privilege of knowing he's the boss. And so either he gets a new contract because he wins, or he's the top assistant somewhere else,
Mhm.
or maybe gets another head. Once you get your first head coaching job, you might get a second. You're not going to get a third if you never win.
Yeah, right.
You have to win some. And so why not just expand your knowledge base to other people? You have to put together a team. You're a CEO in a sense. So you got to make sure the coaches all get along and all of that. I don't think that's a problem for Sam.
Nope.
He's a confident guy. He needs his own team.
Yeah.
I thought he would get Washington. There was a couple of jobs I thought he might get.
Well, that's why I thought it was interesting. He bought Sam in, because if for whatever reason Joe and the Celtics don't do well, Sam will take that job. Yeah. Right? Like that's the next logical guy. But again, that's you have to have that kind of confidence in yourself, and also the willingness in these coaching meetings to not have a fight, but have strong spirited debate. If you are feeling sure about whatever this principle is on defense that you believe, okay, defend it. Tell me why you're right. And we will all, no, I don't think so. I see this, right? And how do we communicate that? And then we leave. At the end, we all agree because we're all on the same team. We're moving. We're all rowing rowing in the same direction.
Hopefully,
as David says, right? Yeah. And then we move forward, right? But easier said than done, right? It's like I always think back to the Eagles documentary when the late Glenn Fry says every great rock band is on the verge of breakup, right? And it's just this. There's too many competing egos and voices, and it's just like it's a tenuous rope that you got to walk. But
hard to build a successful team. Because you're dealing with two dramatic contrasts, success and failure.
Yeah.
You're not just dealing with one.
Right.
It's not so hard to get along when you're only having success. Not that it's perfect, but when you've got both, you got songs that don't hit or whatever, and then songs that do hit. Like it's just why marriages struggle and families struggle and teams struggle. Yeah.
It's an awful lot. All right, guys, we'll be back after a brief commercial break. Okay, David. We talked about the load management thing that the NBA said last week.
We're not done.
We're not done. Well, I want to start here because we put the and I won't tell all this stuff, but I want to just leave one part of this that Henry talked about in our True Group chat, which was, well, if you say the word science and you say science does not support load management, as we said last week, David, on the show, well, you now have to show us that science. And we, as media members, need to be able to ask questions of whomever your scientists are that came up with this data, all the different things. Tell us more. What sample sets were you looking at? What were you gauging it over? Like, we get to ask the penetrating questions. And, the league did not make that available for whatever reason. I mean, I think we know why.
We know the reason.
we know why. And I just think that it is, again, this is just a very disingenuous thing to do. Not only to say the word science like that, because this, David, is part of a larger issue we have as a society in which science is no longer accepted as research factual data, even though it is. We have so many people who doubt science and the actual rigor of doing scientific research. This is real shit. This is a lot of trial, error, hypothesis over it before you come up with actual conclusion. But to throw out the word science like that so haphazardly and say it doesn't support it, it's extremely dangerous in this NBA context, but also just for a larger world context when we talk about the word science.
Yeah, I did not know you were going to go there, and I got to not go down that rabbit hole because
we don't want to get political about it, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. I don't understand the about face other than money.
Yeah, TV contract.
I gotta believe the idea that all these teams were wrong and you suddenly just announcing it is very strange to me. I put in the document. I know obviously you're a swim coach. They taper in swimming.
Yes.
And so I put a study in there.
Right.
And how, and this is to the point when you said the word rigor.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of this process.
Yes.
Is science keeps trying to get better, keeps trying to figure out more and more and more. The idea that, well, turns out we were wrong. No one needs rest.
Right.
It defies logic.
Correct.
It just makes no sense at all. I wish they would just say, we figured out we can't really have a great business unless we just have our guys try to play 82 games a year. And so, yeah, we run the risk of a lot of guys getting hurt, but we have a lot of good talented players. And so if we lose 40% and the other 60 are good players, we'll still have a good playoffs. Like, I would just be honest with us.
I'm with you.
I'm offended at how this has gone. And I'm waiting. I don't think teams are going to be allowed to say stuff, but
probably not.
At the end of the day, I have a hard time believing any player just doesn't feel right is not going to be able to sit.
Well, what did you put in the document about what Rob Pelinka said about what he and LeBron have worked out, or this team and LeBron have worked out this year? The goal was to deliver him healthy, right?
This is what Pelinka told the press.
Right. So Pelinka said this to the media. We worked with LeBron, I'm paraphrasing, to make sure we deliver him as healthy as possible at the end of the season, which means for the playoffs. Well,
load management to me.
I mean, that's what, I don't know. Like, guys, this is not rocket science. Your body has a certain amount of energy in it. You start a season on whatever day. As you continue on, that energy tank lower and lower and lower and lower. It doesn't all of a sudden go back up to 100% midway. It's not how this works. And so in order for you to manage your energy and your ability to recover and all the things, you have to manage the load that your body takes. Like, I just,
When I moved into the home we live in now is 2010. One of the first things we did, we got new garage doors. I don't remember any of this, but we did. That I know. And a couple weeks ago, I had a doctor appointment, nothing serious. And luckily, it's 5 minutes from me. And I'm a coach, which means I always arrive early. Not even 5 minutes. It's 3 minutes away. I can almost walk in 5 minutes. And I opened my garage door from my side of the garage, and it wouldn't open. And so I called the garage people because my wife's one of those geniuses that everywhere in the house that anything could break, she has the business card of who can fix it somewhere attached to it that you can't miss. So I called Precision Doors. They came out. They told me what was wrong. Basically, a garage door can open. I'm going to make up a number, call it 10,000 times. Mm-hmm. And after that, it's hit or miss. And when it's dead forever. Mm-hmm. And so my garage, that side was dead forever. So I did not know. I never thought about it. Plus, I didn't know how long we live here. It turns out we're still here, but in 2010. Athletes are a little bit different because this garage door was working great until it stopped working at all.
Correct.
Our returns are diminishing returns. Mm-hmm. And then with a recharged motor, so to speak, like I had to get for my garage door, we're great, right? That's why, watch these games in preseason. Dudes are flying everywhere. Now go watch the NBA Finals game. The intensity is there. The pressure is there. The speed and quickness, we know this.
Right.
The NBA knows it. They track it. That's how we know.
Right.
Their data.
Yeah.
And so it's bothersome to me. It really bothers me. And we're going to lose a player to an injury that we shouldn't lose.
Absolutely.
And there's really going to be a controversy coming.
No, you're 100% right, David. And the example you point out is this is not about David or us not liking Christian Braun, but Christian Braun was not a good player last year by any metric. He just wasn't.
Bad. He was bad.
But as David said, he was running circles around people in the NBA Finals. Why do you think that is? Because he's 21 or wherever he is and hadn't played all year, right? Yeah. And so he's got plenty of energy to run around and jump all over people. That's,
And he hadn't played all year because he sucked. Right. Mike Malone would have played him more if he was good.
Right.
But all of a sudden he's good in the NBA Finals?
No, that's not how that works.
He's fucking faster than everybody. Bouncier, yeah. It's just, it really, I think we're moving towards something almost calamitous, potentially.
Well, it insults our intelligence, David, right? When they do this, right? It's very insulting. You're like, you're taking...
Right. Correct.
You just think everybody's stupid. And it's like, no, like we're not. We know what you're doing here. And again, I've said this a million times. I'll say it again. I independently spoke to 6 different sports medicine folks, and they all said to a man and woman, they're like, just off the top of our heads, 2 loads within a 7-day period is about the max an NBA player should be doing. All independent didn't know what, they're like, off the top of our head, 2 times in 7 days. And we know the average is 3 and change per 7. Oftentimes 4 in 7.
Yeah, the average is probably 3 point something.
Yeah, 3 point something.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Whereas what's the average in the Premier League? Less than 2.
Yeah.
Like 1.5, 1.6. The NBA is probably double average games per week compared to Premier League. Yeah. Who spend an awful lot of money too on their athletes.
And people will even argue, and I see it too, that in the top football leagues in the world, they're even playing too much. Because when you add in their 2 games a week, now you got Champions League, and now we got international play. Like, they're starting to say, this is too much. We're going to get... So they're seeing the same thing, and it's driven by the same factor. Why are we adding more games? Money, right? It's the same reason.
So in the top soccer league, so maybe I'm wrong. Normally they play a weekend
and a weekday,
and a Champions League.
So they'll have like a Tuesday, Sunday, or whatever, Wednesday, Saturday.
They play 2 Premier League games a week. Typically, they do sometimes.
Sometimes it'll be a Champions League game or a,
different. I'm just saying, if there's a Premier League game on a weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they'll play one Champions League game, and then they might play again. So maybe sometimes it's the third game in a week, or it's the first day of the next week.
Right.
But there's obviously most of those teams don't play in the Champions League.
Right. They'll play in the Europa League or the down below. Yeah.
Right. So six. How many teams play in the Champions League?
Oh, top of my head.
From a Premier League, like a 4. Top 4
that make the Champions League, yeah.
Top 4,
yeah.
Then the next X number play Europa,
yeah.
And then there's nothing. I mean, they're tracking. I've been to practices Premier League. They're tracking heart rate and blood pressure and sweat and checking sleep. We've the article that you posted that David Aldridge wrote. I think it's from the Athletic, TNT. Teams have sleep doctors or whatever. Are we just ignoring that science? And that's what really gets me. My mother-in-law 2 weeks ago Tuesday, she got a new knee. 85 years old, ovarian cancer survivor, got a new knee. Moved into my house. She moved out yesterday. She's doing amazing. She doesn't need us anymore. She said, we said, you sure you'll be okay living on your own? I feel better than I did before I got my new knee 10 days ago. That's what she told me over the weekend. That's the same science. All of this is the same kind of science. The argument over vaccines, it's the same science, meaning it's vigorous, rigorous studies and math and equation after equation and data and all these findings and control and all of that. To suddenly say this science hasn't been right is really pissing on science in general, which is a scary result of what's happening now.
Just to be clear, the new Champions League format has the top 5 from Premier League going.
Okay.
6 team goes to Europa, and then the FA Cup winners also to Europa.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Look, the point you made about sleep, David, also very clear. That's the thing that we're talking about here. It's the sleep, which equals rest and recovery, and I mean actual sleep, not that on the plane. No.
Right.
I mean actual REM, where they're getting into deep recovery mode.
Yeah.
The more games you play and the more travel you have, guess what you're not doing a lot of? Deep REM sleeping. So that means you're not recovering. Like the sleep is such a key piece to all of this. And that's been tracked a ton by so many companies and and again, the best players in the world and LeBron and all the famous stories about he spends $1 million on his body every year. Like this is what these players are fighting to do, right? Is how can I recover as best as possible so I can maintain this level of play? And it's hard, right? The more games you play and the more travel you have, less time to sleep. So, yeah, NBA, do better. We don't like these things you're putting out there about science not supporting the data for load management. All right, David, back to on the floor. We talked about him last week. I just dropped a couple of clips in of watching Victor Wembanyama, and man, it's so fun watching this dude, mainly because he's just so tall, and the skill set he has at his height is crazy. We've literally never seen anyone. Yes, Kevin Durant's 7 foot. Like this dude's 7'5". Like
is he 7'5", 7'4"?
7'4". I mean, he's just ridiculous. He's freakishly tall.
Yeah. And super long.
One thing I want to talk about is his defense, David. He'll find times this year where he's out of position just because everyone gets out of position on defense because they just don't know what they're doing, whatever, mistake. But man, that long-ass wingspan can often make up for being out of position because of the ground he can cover. If someone's out of position and they have a shorter wingspan, they've got to really kind of get themselves all the way back into position to contest, right? This dude, he has to make one step over and get his arm up, and it's like, oh, I'm back in position here. It's fucking crazy. And I think that if you're an offensive player, right, and you're going at him and you're like, oh, he's out of position. He might be, but his arms might not be. They may come back and hit you where you don't even see it coming from. It's like that idea of the best shot block is the one you don't see coming. Well, that's the thing with him. because you get by him and you're like, well, I'm by him. Yeah, but he's so long, his arms and wingspan will make up for that. I think it's incredible.
All right, to be clear, it's not some idea. That's my idea. I don't know if I'm right. I mean, I am happy for someone to tell me I'm wrong and that you should try to block the shot of the guy you're guarding. I just don't like it. Yes, I think you're asking for fouls too much. Victor, when you say out of position, there's out of position because I fucked up. Mm-hmm. There's out of position because I didn't fuck up. I'm executing. Mm-hmm. And so, but the ball moved or a player moved. And now I've got to get back in position. Those arms help. I mean, Jarod, he's legit. He's going to be one of the best players of all time if he stays healthy. Pop is just now. I spoke to a Spurs guy yesterday. Yeah. Pop is just now starting to coach him a little bit on offense. He's really not been coaching him much. Yeah. Just trying to get a feel for him.
Watch him.
And so, And so apparently now on occasion he'll say that's a terrible shot. And Victor needs to hear that.
Yeah, for sure.
Because he's capable of shooting some terrible shots. Mm-hmm. But he's going to be special.
Well, that's the beauty, David, what you said right there. How many young coaches, or even old coaches, aren't good? They get a guy like Victor, their first tendency is probably to, overcoach him, right? And just start spewing. Yeah. Pop, for weeks, probably just sat and watched, said nothing. Yeah. Because you're learning, right? You're like, the humility to, I have to learn you. Let me see what you're doing. Victor did say though on media day, or not media day, like during,
he yelled at him.
He's like, "Oh yeah, he already yelled at me." He's like, it took a long time. I was waiting for it. He's like, I'm kind of glad he did. Like, so Victor seems like he wants to be coached also. Which, if that's true, oh man, this is a dream as a coach.
For sure. There's I credit two people with kind of helping build my own coaching philosophy. One was real, one is not. Harvey Penick, the great golf instructor who wrote all those books, inspired me to write my book, but really helped me kind of shape my mentality as a coach. And then the other was Mr. Miyagi. But Harvey Penick wrote about how he would get a new pupil, and very at his level. I'm happy to say it was similar to me now, where they're already in the NBA, right, or they're looking to get there when they call me. I don't typically, help out the fourth grade. It's not very good or whatever. I'm happy to do it if it's a family friend.
Right.
And so Harvey Penick, it might have been a woman even, I wanted Harvey to watch her putt. And he's just watching this beautiful. It might have been a guy, because now I think about it, it was PGA Tour, a guy that could play on the tour. The putting was beautiful. And Harvey didn't say a word. And Harvey said, don't mistake me for not paying attention. I don't have anything to offer. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to watch and take it all in. And at the end of this putting lesson, it was some very famous golfer, Harvey, but young. Harvey said, you don't need anything from me. Go crush the tour, basically. But mostly people do need stuff. Mm-hmm. And Victor definitely does. And I think that's the right approach Pop took, is let's let him just get comfortable and not second guess himself. And let's see, because we all might be surprised at what he can do. Like we've coached a whole bunch of guys near his size before who can't do any of these things. Correct. Let's first evaluate and then kind of chisel away and whittle away at some things that he probably needs more work at, and talk about what he should be focusing more now. Very smart way of doing it. And no surprise. He's going to be rookie of the year. Yeah. As good as Chet has been doing, it's just as another level. I think Victor's at the other level.
One of the things that you said astutely and very smartly before Victor even got in the league, you said, they should probably be running off screens like Duncan Robinson and do a variety of things, right?
More so than trying to play like KD.
Correct.
Although he's got a little shake and bake to his game now.
Sure.
He does.
And that I think will come. It's like, but it's a lot to give him all that right now. Let's do this stuff first. And you're already seeing that. You're seeing the dribble handoff game with them that they're doing. And again, at that, where his shooting pocket is, to your point about the player you have, you're like, Shabazz Napier keeps taking the ball from me. It's probably the same with Victor, right? The only way these little guys can take the ball from you is when you put it down when you're in a crowd. Yeah. Don't put it down.
His release is high, and he's super tall and long. You're just not going to get to it.
Right.
Yeah, it's a challenge to contest his shot. It's a challenge. the hope is, I'm saying this out loud, I hope he never turns his ankle when someone goes so close to contest
they land on him
under him. I'm worried about that a little bit.
Yeah.
The players that I've already advised going against him, I've asked them to stay. I'm not doing it for any reason other than I don't want to foul a 3-point shooter. Stay on his side when you're contesting. Don't get underneath him because you'll get a third. You might get a flagrant for it.
You have a player, I won't say who played Victor the preseason, and you told him, don't be amazed. He's going to do some crazy thing you've never seen before. It's going to happen. Get over it. It happened. The player was amazed. But as you are,
he wrote to me. He said, "Victor is tall as shit." That's exactly. I have it in my phone. Victor's tall as shit.
And you're like, yeah, I told you.
Yeah. He's going to dunk everything in the paint. That's what I've been hearing in San Antonio, and he's doing it.
So when it comes to the regular season now for real, and you have a guy who's, hey, coach, I got Victor tomorrow, and I got to defend him probably primarily, what are some of the things you're going to be talking to your guys about?
You got to really fight on the offensive glass. Don't let him. He's done a nice job in both games of being involved. You can't let him have those little tip-ins, or don't foul him driving. Make him pull up over you. Try to keep him guessing a little bit. Are you going to force him left? Are you going to force him right? Get after his dribble. If he puts it down, try to steal it. Chase it. When you help aggressively to it. You've got to be physical without kind of wrapping him up, hands wide. Use your body a little bit, and use a lot of fakes on the other end. He's just going to block your shot if you just go shoot it. You got to use fakes and play explosively. Don't try to dunk. Don't just try to lay it up on him. You got to try to dunk on him.
It'll be, we always talk about how players get reference points, and it's so important for rookies because they don't have them like how LeBron and CP3 and all these guys have got encyclopedia brains. It'll be fun for him. Maybe not fun. He might not enjoy it, but it'll be a good reference point for him when I think he goes up against this generation's best defender in Draymond Green, right? I think that'll be, because Draymond will probably be on him at some point because he'll play 4 and all that. I think that'll be a nice, because about wide hands, and Draymond knows every trick in the book and is a brilliant defensive player. Like, that'll be, I think, a nice, oh, okay, I got some things to learn here after playing this dude.
It's going to be a few guys. Drew Holiday can give some trouble if he's trying to be more perimeter based, just get after his dribble. Marcus Smart, too, if they decide to do that, because they're going to play him at 4, and so you might switch 1 through 4.
Yep.
That's what they're hoping to do anyway. So, but yeah, these are all practice things.
That's how you learn.
Next day. Yeah. Pop will handle that well.
All right, David, one of the things that we're still kind of waiting for is the domino to fall, the domino being James Harden. He's still with the Sixers at this point. He spoke to the media for the first time last week and said, look, my position remains unchanged. My relationship with Daryl Morey is not salvageable. I made it clear what I want. They know what they have to do, but I'm going to come here and do what I got to do. And I guess, Adrian Wojnarowski and various people have been saying what they've been hearing about rumors floating out there. The Clippers, that's the place he wants to go. Whether it happens or not really depends on if they give Daryl whatever it is that he's asking for. Now, what he's asking for, I don't know, right? Because stuff gets floated out all the time, whether it's true or not. And we'll talk about.
I know what he's asking for. I do.
Okay.
I know. I can't say it.
Of course, you can't say it. Yes.
Yeah, I can't say it, and so to your point, the people who are writing this stuff that they're writing,
right?
They're either writing it because they're being told to write it, or they're listening to the wrong people. Because I'm lucky enough to be connected to a lot of people involved in the situation, and there's no one player. It's not that. You'll see when I told Henry everything. Daryl doesn't have what he wants yet. Simple as that. And maybe he'll say yes. That's why James spoke out the other day. Now it's time to make him a little uncomfortable again. The problem is, I don't think Daryl's ever going to get uncomfortable. You talked about this before,
right?
So maybe Josh Harris will.
Yeah,
the owner. I think that's the next step is to get the owner involved. Say, can you just step in and get this thing done?
Yeah, and James, has that kind of leverage, right? Where he can go to Josh and say, look, like, this is what I'd like. Can you get Daryl to do this thing? And we'll see, right? Does Josh do what James wants or what Daryl wants? That'll be interesting. Shams has gotten a lot of sort of ink lately. You got a piece in the New York Magazine. I think there's another one in the Times, maybe. No, not the Times. Some other publication. Anyway, just talking about that industry. And Henry's been quoted a lot in a lot of these pieces, talking about, the quote unquote newsbreakers. And it's no secret here about where we are with that, because our position is very clear. Like, this is not news breaking, guys. They are not breaking news. They are being told specifically, okay, this deal is done. You can now go ahead and put that out there. Right. And it is they do that, and it gives them access to, whether it be GMs, agents, whatever, but they're not doing investigative journalism reporting. And as Henry has said numerous times, the transaction market, or being first to say who's going to get player X, that's the cotton candy of the business, right? Yes, people like it and it's fun, it's cute. But when you do that, it prevents you from figuring out, where's the money coming from?
Yeah.
Who's doping, right? All the actual things that we investigative
journalism. Why are we ignoring science?
Yes, why are we ignoring science? Yes, correct. Funny that Shams or Woj didn't ask any questions about why we're ignoring science. But
and still haven't, as far as we know.
Correct.
Yeah, none of them have.
No. And so, that's what it is. But the danger for me, David, too, is that because these guys, and it was noted in this New York Magazine piece, they can help GMs as well, right? So if they know a player, for instance, from another side is not being offered something from a team because they're also tight with that GM, they can let them, hey man, you don't need to give this guy a 5-year, $100 million deal, because that's not what he's getting over here. And that hurts the market for the player, right? They're not able to get potentially what their maximum value could be. And when, I'm using air quotes, when journalists like Shams and Woj can do that, that's a dangerous, dangerous game that we're in. And we're already well out down the rabbit hole, and the horses already way down past the barn. But it's all bad. All of this is very bad for the game.
Yeah, I don't know if they cited an example of that. I tell you, I'm lucky to speak to a lot of agents and players and executives. Their names only have come up for when it's time to announce the deal. That's it. It doesn't mean that what you're saying is wrong. It doesn't mean that someone isn't necessarily losing money because their bidding war ends because they're saying that team's not really bidding from the first place. I'm just telling you, I've never heard their names ever mentioned other than, okay, we got this deal done now, because I don't break news. No, Henry knows that. Right. We got this deal done. Let's give it to whoever they give it to.
Right.
And it's over. Okay. And so if they're lucky enough, they give the courtesy of the agent or the player to know. I mean, I've definitely had players pulled out of literally halftime of games. Yeah. Can't play second half. You just got traded. As I've told you, normally you don't hear about anything until it's done.
Well, that was the Drew Holiday deal. I mean, the Dame deal. Nobody, not
right.
Sham or Woj, the NBA's great newsbreaker.
Right.
Not one of them had the Milwaukee Bucks on the list. Then all of a sudden, deal gets done as Milwaukee. Right.
Right. So yeah. I don't see what the big deal is. I really don't understand the fascination over who gets something reported first directly from a team. You're going to find out.
Nice.
Within it's silly to me, but whatever.
It's the game.
It's yeah. I don't love it. Players can also do it themselves.
Sure.
But they feel like that's the problem is they need the favor. The teams want the favor from the reporter, whatever that favor is. That's what's uncomfortable for me.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then you see it right based on how Woj or Shams talks about a particular front office executive or whatever, and you're like, there's a lot of flowers about this person. Well, that should let you know where they're getting information from, right? If they're writing all these wonderful things, you're like, something's up here. But that's the nature of the business. As you know, that's not what we do here at True Hoop. You get the unvarnished truth, whether you like it or not. All right, folks. We will see you on Thursday. More preseason. David, the season's coming soon, man. We got what? A week. What?
I think the 24th.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 games.
Yeah. That opening night. Yeah.
Next Tuesday.
Exciting.
Let's go.
Exciting times. All right, everybody. We will see you on Thursday. Take care.